back live here at the Orion Ascent conference in sunny San Diego. And with me right now, I have Brian Morgan, who's the product director for financial planning here at Orion. Brian, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thrilled to be here. This is awesome.
Absolutely. So we had a little time to kill. So Brian and I have already had a bit of a conversation.
Yep.
So I'm going to try to recap some of that. If we could do exactly what we did, it'd be perfect.
Awesome. Yeah.
But it was really great stuff. So we are ultimately going to talk about estate planning. Now, estate planning, of course, is kind of evergreen, right? It's not just for going RIA. You could be a wirehouse advisor doing estate planning. You could be an independent broker dealer doing estate planning. And of course, RIAs do estate planning all the time. But here's the context we're going to talk about, though. When you're looking to go RIA, one of the first things you want to do is figure out what is your tech stack. So we're going to start broad, and then we're going to get into the estate planning aspect as well. So one of the most important decisions, or at least the first one, probably the most important one, when you're building your tech stack as an RIA or someone going RIA, you want to think in terms of, do you want an all-in-one bundled solution, right? Or do you want to pick and choose of different types of solutions, meaning your account manager is with this vendor, your financial planning is with that vendor, your rebalancer was this other vendor, or do you want to have, and I think Eric Clark is the first time I heard this, a most-in-one solution, right? So if you can start off with that, Brian, just explaining what that means, most-in-one, all-in-one, or pick and choose, how would you explain that to the audience?
Yeah, as someone who came from a wirehouse in the first half of my career, I think there's just so much innovation going on in the entire industry. With Orion, we've made a lot of mergers and acquisitions. I was one of them about 5 years ago at this point, and Orion has a great culture of building a lot of technology, but also integrating. I mean, we probably have hundreds of integrations. So, when you're thinking about your tech stack, all the different pieces that you have to put in place, I think one, it's great that you have the best of the best that you can choose from. When you think about all the integrations that we can do. But within Orion, I think, we've made a lot of, like I said, acquisitions and done a lot of work to integrate those really well. The swivel chair advisor experience is something that we're trying to solve. Well, I have this tool that does this and this tool that does that, but they really don't talk to each other. Maybe I get a little bit of information, but it's a choppy experience for the clients or for us as the advisors. So when you think about most in one versus all in one, I mean, Orion has done a great job of making these acquisitions, building them all together, so we're really talking well and integrating well. But for those of you that still prefer to use, let's say, another planning tool, for example, we still integrate with them. For example, I also manage Orion's client portal, and we have Orion Planning that you can use, but you can still use eMoney, a Money Guy Pro. So Orion, we want to support advisors so that you have the best experience as possible, your clients have the best experience as possible. So like I said, I think Orion's done a really good job of putting all the pieces in place, but we know that we need to be supportive, for you to make sure that you're having the best experience possible. So we need to continue with all those integrations.
I think that's a super important point to make. And I was so glad to hear both Brian and Natalie reinforce that during their keynote yesterday. So, I went RIA 5 years ago, right? But the quarter century before that, I was in the broker-dealer world. And it was fine, but I really wanted to go fee only, and I really wanted control over my practice. I wanted control over my technology. I wanted control over compliance. So, of course, I went RIA. So, but for probably 15 years, I was using eMoney, and I love eMoney. So I was very glad, and I'm also an Orion client, as you know.
Yep.
But I was able to keep my eMoney, and I liked the integration so much. I wrote an article on this about 2 years ago for Investment News called "Can't We All Just Get Along?"
Yep.
And in that article, we had Eric Clark, right, who was running it at the time, Aaron Klein from Nitrogen, at that time it was Riskalyze,
Yep.
and Ed O'Brien, who used to run eMoney at the time.
Yep.
And what I loved is those are three, you could call them competitive firms, right? I mean, you guys have a risk analytic tool, you have a planning tool, but you also do not block out eMoney or Nitrogen or 100 of other different vendors.
Yep.
And for those of you in the audience that are looking to go independent, that is so important, that you want to make sure that whatever technology you like best, right? And Orion's not the only game in town. You talk to a few different people, of course, because it's a big decision. But once you find which is right for you, you want to get all of your technology lined up, whether it's an all-in-one solution or pick and choose, but make sure they all play well together in the sandbox. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even from a client's experience, right? When you're putting all these things together, each software could have their own login, right? And we don't want to have clients going to 4 or 5 different places. We're going to go to this link and this is going to be your username and password and this for that, right? So, thinking about Orion and our client experience, we have that one login, and if you want to see your accounts, the performance, you see that in our client portal, but then you can shoot over to an e-money from our portal. You're not having to give those multiple logins. So yeah, we'll certainly continue to be supportive of that, because that's really going to give you the best client experience possible.
That is so important. So, as we kind of wrap this up here, I always like to see if there's any new news to announce, right?
Yep.
And I think you have something with estate planning, which is exciting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Orion Planning is a financial planning tool. It's formerly Advisor, Orion acquisition. And, I think from a perception perspective, we've been always known as that light planning tool. And I will tell you, as the person who has run the product management for 4 or 5 years, that we are a comprehensive tool. And I'm really excited about estate planning. I think that's a space that, we know over the next 20 years, there's something like $70 trillion that could be at play, so being able to connect the dots as far as where everything's going to be going. From a behavioral perspective, we've been doing a lot with our Chief Behavioral Officer, Dr. Daniel Crosby, on ways that you can connect with the next generation. B520 is a really cool tool to do that. But from the estate planning perspective, we have all those assets that are already coming in from Orion. We're already reconciling those, giving you performance. From the financial planning perspective,
we got a rock concert all of a sudden starting up here.
I'm pumped up.
We are putting these noise canceling microphones to the test. I'm not sure if you guys can hear this, but there's some real ruckus going on back there. A lot of energy.
Yeah.
But if you would just wrap up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, with estate planning, we've always had a light estate planning option. We had a checklist, a beneficiary review, which I think for the broad spectrum of clients is going to be always really helpful. You want to make sure clients get organized. But as we think about that wealth transfer, having clients understand potential tax implications, fees, knowing where that money is going, making sure they're organized so that their beneficiaries are set up correctly. We didn't really have a great visual for that. And that's what I'm really excited, for the advisors using it. We give you a really simple workflow, a step-by-step process. Here's the information we need to get to the end. So we make it super simple for advisors. You can even invite a client to go through it on their own. To add all that information for you or with you. Could be a collaborative experience. We give you that flow chart that I think everyone's used to from an estate planning perspective, a table view, when talking with firms that are already, providing estate planning, or they work with attorneys that provide estate planning. They're used to that Excel spreadsheet. So we actually built an Excel spreadsheet light experience too for clients that prefer that. You can change the columns. You can keep as concise or as detailed as you like. And then there's what ifs, right? We know life expectancy is going to be a big part of this decision. Tax laws, in the next couple of years, those could potentially change, or they will change as of right now. So being able to manipulate some of the assumptions in there just to show clients what will happen, I think it's a great first start. And yeah, we're super pumped. We've got a really great reception to what we've done, and really excited for the future.
Right. Excuse me. That sounds like a good place to wrap up for today. So, Brian Morgan from Orion, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yep. Thanks, Chuck.
Okay. And on behalf of goRIA, fueled by investment news, we will be here for another 4 or 5 hours with some more content. So stay tuned for that. Meanwhile, I think Brian and I are going to go join the mosh pit. All right. We'll be back soon.